My name's Victoria, and this is my family. It started when my parents came together. They blended and created a family. The birth of my brother and I symbolizes a collaboration of differences. And down the line, those differences have led to some difficult situations. We anger people who reject change, and we are burdened by a bigoted society. But through it all, we have persisted, and this is our story. My name is Victoria Coleman.
My name is Hazel Coleman.
Caleb Coleman.
Hi, my name is Colin Coleman.
I think when discussing our life and just our family and his existence, you really have to start with the beginning and when my parents first started dating. Obviously, my mom's a white woman, my dad's a black man, and they became a couple in a state where interracial relationships were literally illegal less than a lifetime ago.
My dad had some concerns about interracial relationships and the problems that he foresaw us having with his background being from an area without a lot of minorities and noticing how people were treated there. Some of my parents' friends had made comments that I could do better in their minds, that I was settling.
One of my best friend's grandfathers growing up, we were pretty close, and he would say that white people should be with white people and black people should be with black people. But it was different situations.
Mom and dad, as you know, were 19 when they had us. Very few people plan to have kids at 19, and nobody plans to have twins at 19. So, for lack of better words, we probably should have been aborted.
Camera. Go get Victoria. Oh, so cute. Yay, what a big boy.
As we grew up and our family moved from a very mixed area in Virginia Beach to a very white, predominantly white area, I think that's when I really first realized that a lot of people had problems with our family.
I mean, one of our first neighbors, I think I was working on something, cutting the grass, and he came up to me and said, oh, do you live here? I said, yeah, I live here. He said, well, are your parents home? I'm thinking, what do you mean are my parents home? I was 24. And I mean, the neighborhood was a little bit under 300,000, right? But then he was like, well, are your parents home, or whoever owns the house, they're here? I said, no, this is my house. And then ever since that conversation, he was just always funny and always bringing up little things and always trying to have this competition that I was never trying to have with him. Like, of course, one time, I mean, even in our last neighborhood, I mean, it was a very nice community, and we got pulled over looking at Christmas lights, driving through our own neighborhood, and weren't speeding, weren't doing anything illegal, weren't. Then I told the cop specifically, I said, you pulled me over because I was driving while black. And he really didn't have anything to say. I said, well, why did you pull me over? Oh, we had some calls of people driving slow. I'm like, well, people are driving slow looking at Christmas lights.
My neighbors typically keep their distance, and some of that's due to age because we started young, but some of it, I believe, is due to us being too much of a motley crew for them, so to speak.
We had first moved to Chesapeake in Great Bridge when we were playing outside, and then that dude in the truck drove by, and we were used to waving to people whenever we were outside, and then the dude yelled the N-word at us, and I was just like, wow. At 10 I didn't really know what it meant, but that was the first time I ever realized that there was a problem, not with us, but just with society. And then a couple years later is when I finally realized, oh, that was not okay. Like, I was a 10-year-old. That was a grown, like, old man.
I feel like I was aware of race and our differences from a young age. I remember one time when I was like 3 or 4, my mother had a friend over who was a Asian lady. I'm pretty sure she was Filipino. And I straight up told my mom that this lady was my mother because she had tan skin like I did. And I don't really remember how my mom reacted to that, but I can only imagine it was a little bit of sadness because she realized I knew that me and her were not the same.
When our teacher was reading us some story, and she was talking about um just an African American child, and then my friend Mark next to me goes, African American, just like Caleb, and points at me, and I was like stared at him, and I was like, what is he talking about? And I guess that's when I first noticed that there was even differences between people, that we weren't all just people.
I think that when my brother and I started, like maybe middle school, high school, we started encountering a lot of problems, mainly directed from our peers with our skin color. You sound too white for us, or like, why do you insist on sounding that way? And why do you insist on using like large words in your vocabulary? And I'm just like, I'm not like consciously doing this.
For a while, like whenever I did try and make friends or like try and do things with kids, I would often either get, you can't do this because you're white, or like I would get that from black kids, or I would get, you can't do that because you're black, from like the white kids. Like if I ever wanted to skateboard with people, they'd be like, no, that's like a white thing. You can't do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean that's a white thing? I wouldn't say it was necessarily a conscientious decision. I just noticed that more often than not, like black kids would kind of ostracize me sometimes more so than white kids, at least to my face. And then that I found that more often than not, like white people and white kids at my schools and stuff accepted more so that I was mixed, rather than making fun of it, or like using that as like the brunt of, or using it as like the basis for their jokes and stuff.
I definitely know like the way that teachers treated you guys. Like in some ways, I felt like they had lower expectations, and so when you did as well as you did, it sort of caused them to like praise you maybe more than the average student in that regard. But and then in some ways, I felt like they sort of had such low expectations from the get-go, which bothered me.
I remember one time in particular, I was set to visit Columbia University because I was getting recruited by their basketball team, and obviously Columbia is an Ivy League program. I just remember I was telling my friends about it because I was obviously looking forward to going to Manhattan, being a lover of New York, and one of my teachers, she overheard me telling my friends about our upcoming trip, and she was just like, how did you make that work? And I'm like, what do you mean, how did I make that work? Like, are my straight A's like not enough? The fact that I broke state records in basketball my freshman year and continued to excel, and I'm literally in like the top 10 players in Hampton Roads right now. I was like, is that not enough to prove myself? Like, how much more do I have to do to prove myself? And why do you just assume that I am not a go-getter because of my race?
I have seen and heard comments over the years that have just like really boggled my mind by people who I was showing properties to that didn't know I was in a mixed relationship. When people find out that I'm in a mixed relationship, I've heard comments about that, like a lot of snide comments, or just, you know, like off-putting jokes that sort of make me feel very uncomfortable.
I think they treated your mother a certain way, or treated me a certain way, and then they would find out, oh, where we live, and or maybe find out a little bit of something about what I did or what my job was, and then some people like completely role reversed.
There were some things that have happened along the way that would make me feel like I was being judged unfairly. Like, for instance, with maintaining your hair when you were younger, and your hair was sort of an in-between, you know. I think the texture and the curl and the product that it needed wasn't exactly like what, you know, my mother-in-law would need, and it wasn't exactly what I would need. So it was sort of finding the products that straddled the line.
Obviously, mothers maintain their daughter's hair usually, and with her, she had no idea how to take care of it, at least at the start, and she definitely did a great job on educating herself and doing the research. But of course, there were times when certain things we tried didn't work, and that left me feeling very sad about my hair. And then I would go to school and people would say, "Hey, Victoria, you would look so pretty if you straightened it." And I'm just like, well, I mean, am I not pretty now? So I think the whole hair situation, even to this day, has very much affected my confidence.
I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my neck. I can't breathe shit.
Bro, get up, get in the car, man.
I will.
Get up, get in the car.
I can't move.
I've been waiting the whole plane, man. George Floyd! What was his name? George Floyd! What was his name? George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! Black lives! Black lives!
I think when viewing the events that happened last summer, such as the Black Lives Matter protests in response to multiple unjustified killings by the police of Black Americans, such as Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, it's really hard to witness that. And obviously there's something in the Black community called the talk, or that's what it's been branded as, and it's basically like an official discussion that you have with your coming of age Black child, basically warning them that, hey, the world is not always going to be kind to you, and you could be doing everything right, and still one thing could go wrong, and you could end up, well, in this case, dead.
I think it's very important to have that talk. Society sees us as Black. They don't see us as mixed. You know, it's one of those things where they have a position of power over you. And historically, we've seen that get abused. You know, it may not be that, yeah, not every cop is dirty. Not every cop's going to, like, you know, just shoot an unarmed minority for no reason. But there's enough of a precedent for it to where we genuinely do need to look out for it. And it is enough of an issue to where, you know, we need to have conversations about it.
So me growing up in Chesapeake, I would get pulled over, and I had a moderately decent car, but I had a nice sound system in a Jeep Cherokee with had rims on it, and it was decent looking, but it wasn't anything to write home about. And I would get pulled over a lot, and I got guns put on me multiple times, been pulled over by 5 and 6 police cars. So in my mind, I definitely had it, and I've always told you, hey, you know what, you guys, even though you're biracial, you know, in a lot of places in society, you won't get one chance, but then some people will give you one chance. But I always wanted to set you up for worst case scenario, but hope for the best case.
Like, obviously, I was cognizant of safety for a child, like watch where you're going, don't cross the street without looking, don't talk to strangers. But I never really thought about the fact that, like, when they were playing jailbreak in the neighborhood, that maybe somebody could have seen like a Black child or a Black teen playing or hiding behind their car and just automatically thought the worst, you know what I mean? Like, so I became a lot more aware and a lot more guarded, and we had to have the talk at that point. So, but before that, there was nothing in my life to draw from to understand that concept.
Well, mom and dad are both, you know, pretty intelligent individuals, and they have a pretty good sense of what's going on in our lives and like some of the things that we've dealt with. You know, they're both still, you know, they're one ethnicity, and at the end of the day, they aren't connected to, they're not quite the same as us in that we can't really escape either side of ourselves. And we have to deal with issues from both ends as well as the positive sides of both ends. So you know, as much as they care, as much as they know, they don't always know exactly how it is as much as like you or I or like another mixed race person could know.
There's certainly great parts about being a mixed child in an interracial family. It's easy to kind of grab onto the negative because I think, in my mind at least, the negative instances really stand out, which is a problem, but there's certainly great things like the food, the fusion of cultures that comes, and then, of course, being a melting pot of so many different types of backgrounds and such rich history.
So I think at the end of the day, my experiences and what I hope to convey to people is that, you know, we don't sit around thinking about the fact that we're a mixed race family. We're just a family. Like, unfortunately, others and their reactions to us might cause us to reflect upon the differences, but at the end of the day, we're just people. We're no different than any other family. We want to be treated as such.
I mean, a relationship can be a relationship regardless of whether you're white or black or this or that. It's really more about who the person is versus what color they are.
I honestly personally can't think of a single time where I genuinely wish that I was just one or the other so that I could just not deal with the things that I deal with. Um, I do genuinely appreciate the heritage that I have coming from a white and European like descended family on one side and like black and Caribbean and like islander side from the other. And then I definitely appreciate the culture on both sides because it's pretty rich, and you know I love learning more about the family on either side, and you know meeting new people because it's just like wow, like you know we're really unique, and it's crazy that like all of this is basically compounded and culminated into what I am today. So I wouldn't change it for the world.